She was never the one the legends foretold, never the name sung by temples or echoed through ancient prophecies. But while the galaxy looked for light in sabers and storms, she became the quiet fire that never went out, not because she was chosen, but because she chose herself. They called her a princess, as if that crown could contain the weight of what she carried. They saw elegance and forgot the endurance. They saw beauty and overlooked the burden. But behind every title was a woman who had already buried her home, her innocence, and her peace. And still, she stood. While empires rose and brothers broke, she remained. While heroes vanished into exile, and villains collapsed beneath their own hunger, she stayed. She stayed because someone had to hold the line. Someone had to keep believing when belief itself turned to ash. And no one did that like Leia. The Force was never her compass. Responsibility was. She didn't need visions to know what mattered. She listened. She led. She healed the wounds others created and bore the scars they never saw. Not once did she beg to be remembered. But now, she must be. She was the soul of the rebellion, the spine of resistance, the breath between blaster fire. She was the reason anyone ever whispered the word hope and meant it. And though history often paints in the colors of combat and spectacle, hers was a palette of patience, resolve, and quiet rage. In this video, we strip away the myths and show the truth. We follow Leia Organa from war room to battlefield, from throne to trench, from silence to defiance. We explore how she carried a galaxy her family could barely hold, and how, through loss and legacy, she became the Skywalker who never fell. She was born into conflict, not just by blood, but by fate. From the moment Leia Organa took her first breath, the galaxy trembled with unrest. But it was never the stars she looked to for answers. It was the people, the cause, the truth. Every time Leia entered a room, ideology bent slightly in her direction. Not because she shouted the loudest, but because her silence cut through the noise. She asked the questions others feared, challenged the men in power without blinking, and never needed a saber to be a force of her own. Her intellect was not just sharp, it was disarming. And in a galaxy drowning in egos and empires, that was more dangerous than any weapon. Leia's courage did not come from training or prophecy, but from enduring. She was the storm that didn't flinch, the voice that didn't crack, the leader who listened before commanding. While her brother wrestled with prophecy and her father crumbled under its weight, Leia crafted her own myth with deliberate steps. Every choice she made stitched together a rebellion that refused to collapse. And yet she never saw herself as chosen, only responsible. What made her different was not just the absence of darkness, but her refusal to run from the light. She bore the weight of ancestry without letting it define her path. There was no hunger for power, no thirst for redemption, only the need to protect what remained good. And that simple truth made her the most unknowable of them all. Because in a universe obsessed with the extraordinary, Leia mastered the quiet power of the human soul. They remembered her as a princess, as if royalty was all she ever was, as if the title defined her more than her rebellion, as if velvet mattered more than blasters. She was not raised to rule from a palace. She was forged in the wreckage of lost democracies. And somehow, that truth kept being buried beneath the crowns men wanted to place on her head. Why was she never seen as the chosen one? Why did the galaxy look past the woman who did the choosing, the building, the surviving? Luke ran to find meaning in the Force. Anakin fell because he craved control. But Leia chose resistance. She chose to stay, and no prophecy ever honored that. Her grief was never cinematic. It was buried in reports, silenced in council chambers, swallowed in silence, as others mourned louder. When Alderaan died, she didn't crumble. She clenched. She strategized. She fought. Her pain was weaponized into resilience, and the galaxy barely noticed. They crowned her brother for finding the light. They mourned her father for falling into darkness. But Leia never asked for recognition. She asked for justice. And when it didn't come, she kept moving anyway. Kept organizing. Kept saving others, when no one thought she could still be broken. She lost everything and kept going. Her planet, her family, her son, her hope. One by one, the things that gave her purpose were torn from her grasp. And yet somehow, she still chose to lead. She still chose to be the light when her own was flickering. Alderaan shattered without warning. Billions turned to dust while she watched. No hero's journey could prepare her for that. No training, no bloodline, no force. Just silence. And she bore it not with vengeance, but with vision. She didn't retaliate blindly. She rebuilt from ashes. She became blueprint. When Ben turned, she didn't rage like Anakin or disappear like Luke. She stayed. She stayed when it hurt. Stayed when it felt like failure. Stayed because someone had to. And even then, the galaxy called her strong instead of scarred. As if enduring wasn't its own kind of bleeding. She didn't have the luxury of retreat. Her suffering was not private, it was public, politicized, repackaged. She was expected to smile while shattered, to inspire while grieving. And she did. But it wasn't without cost. Every battle left its mark, and she carried them in silence. Leia's legacy is not built on triumph, but on endurance. She didn't rise because she never fell. She rose in spite of it. And that makes her the most tragic kind of hero. The one who kept going, not because she had to, but because she couldn't imagine doing anything else. In a war of giants, she stood unshaken. In a saga filled with gods, she remained human. And somehow, that humanity was her greatest power. While others burned bright and burned out, she lasted. Not by miracle, but by will. She wielded influence like others wielded sabers. Her words moved fleets. Her gaze commanded silence. Her presence alone could hold rebellions together when hope was in short supply. She didn't need mysticism to lead. She was the myth. Leia knew how to speak to warriors and senators alike. She could negotiate and command in the same breath. She didn't shrink in the shadow of legacy. She illuminated it. And when she finally used the Force, it wasn't spectacle. It was survival. It was instinct. It was earned. People followed her not because she demanded loyalty, but because she embodied it. They saw in her a future worth fighting for. They saw conviction without cruelty, power without arrogance. They saw what the Force could never fully explain. Leadership born of purpose. Leia was proof that power doesn't have to corrupt, that love doesn't have to break you, that strength doesn't have to be loud. She was the quiet heartbeat beneath the chaos. The reason people believed tomorrow could still exist. She taught the galaxy to fight smarter, not just harder. To trust in community when the Force faltered. To lead with empathy, even when surrounded by cruelty. And though her losses were many, her victories were always shared. She never took credit. She gave it. In a universe where darkness often returned louder than light, Leia stayed lit, even when the spark was all that remained. Her presence kept people grounded. Her voice reminded them of what was left to protect. And that hope, small as it seemed, grew because of her. She was never meant to be a symbol, but she became one. Not by decree, but by example. And the symbol she became wasn't just for the rebels. It was for anyone who ever thought they weren't enough. She was proof that they were. Leia was not perfect. She was persistent. And that persistence, more than prophecy or power, is what saved the galaxy again and again. In the end, Leia gave everything. Her time, her heart, her peace. She gave until there was nothing left but the legacy of her choices. And still, it was enough to reshape galaxies. Her name will not echo through myths the way Anakin's did. Her story will not dazzle with duels or destinies fulfilled, but it will remain in quiet loyalty, in unshaken purpose, in the rebellion of kindness. She was not a hero because of what she wielded. She was a hero because of what she withheld. Rage, fear, despair. She held them all back to give others room to rise. That is not weakness. That is grace. Leia Organa was never just the daughter of Vader or the sister of Luke. She was the voice of the rebellion, the spine of the resistance, the heart of the hope they never could extinguish. Her power was not fire. It was foundation. And when the galaxy looks back, it will see her clearly. Not as royalty, not as prophecy fulfilled, but as the Skywalker who carried them all.